Hi everyone, I am here today to do 3 looks using the Oden's Eye and Annette's Makeup Corner Mighty Monster eyeshadow palette. As you can probably tell by the lighting in the background, I filmed this while I was out of town, but hopefully it still looks alright. Now, I thought while I was recording this that I'd zoom in a little bit more than I usually do so you guys could really see the performance of the eyeshadows, but as you can probably see, it led to me being out of frame for a lot of my footage. So if you ever see portions of the video where it seems like I skipped through a lot of the application, that would be because I wasn't even in frame and I really need to work on that. But just getting started, I first used the shade Abyss, and now I'm using the shade CBTS, and I'm using that to blend out Abyss. Overall, I had a really great experience with this palette. I'll go over it more in detail at the end, so the commentary for this palette will just be focused on these looks. Now I'm going in with the shade Jormungandr, which I had to watch a YouTube video on how to pronounce it, so hopefully it doesn't sound too terrible. I cannot roll my R's, so that's why I'm not even going to bother to attempt that part, but I gave it a try, right? As you can see, a very easy blend into Abyss. I love this tone of green. I'm also gonna start putting this on my lower lash line, as you can see, just focusing it in the outer half of my lower lash line. And now I'm just gonna apply it to the other eye. I didn't really like edit out as much of the footage as I usually do, so even though it's a voiceover, these are a little bit longer than my previous voiced over 3 looks 1 palette videos have been. I just kind of thought maybe you guys, specifically whenever you guys watch these videos, to try and figure out if you want to buy this or not, it might help for me to leave in as much of the footage as possible, so I ended up leaving most of it in and just speeding it up where necessary. And I'll just take CBTS again. I'm going to use this on the lower lash line. This is definitely a really great, like, contouring lower lash line shade for my skin tone. I remember the days back when Annette was effectively allergic to using neutral colors, and it's so fun to see her evolution in her, like, you know, makeup preferences now that she has neutrals in this. Next, I'm taking the shade Serpent Scales, which just feels like such an appropriate name for this shade. It is such a beautiful shade, as you can see. And one thing I do really like about it is that it doesn't really have a super dark base, so as I'm tapping it out and dispersing the sparkles on my eyelid, I'm not seeing any ashiness or any like weird tonal shifts that would make this look otherwise not work. I appreciate the translucency, but at the same time you can still definitely see there is some base pigment to it. It's not just purely a topper. Really, really pretty, definitely a finish that is up my alley. Now I'm going back into Abyss, and I thought maybe I would deepen up the look just a little bit. I did find this palette to be surprisingly mid-toned, all things considered. Like, I couldn't really get it to look super, super dark. And then I'm just going back in with Jormungandr and just adding in a little bit more of that shade. As you can see, I'm not quite able to build it up true to pan, like, or at least I don't feel like I did. And then for some added sparkle, I took the shade Electrum, which is one of my favorite shades in this entire palette. As you can see, I'm using it on my inner corner, and I'm also dabbing a little bit across the top of the look, just like overall everywhere. This is such a pretty shade. I love this shade so much. And that's what things are looking like, just like a riot of sparkles on my eyelid. Really liking it. I'm taking a little bit more of Serpent Scales just to make sure it's blending into Electrum without there being a really harsh line. And that's gonna be this look. So that's what things look like as my full face of makeup. I tried to focus on the grungier aspects of Jormungandr when putting together the rest of my makeup. And yeah, I thought it was really pretty. This was the first palette that I filmed with, and so this was the first look that I filmed with for all 3 palettes, and I felt like it just really gave me such a good impression of the entire collection, and I definitely felt motivation to continue. I'm just going to be holding up the products I used for the rest of my makeup really quickly, since this is just a voiceover. The review portion at the end I was able to film back at home, but this is quickly what everything is. I cannot remember what shades things were anymore at this point, but just holding it up just for people who are curious. I know I sometimes get some people who ask. But yeah, that's look 1. Hope you guys enjoyed it so far. Okay, welcome back to look number 2. For this look, I'm going to start off with Oceanic. This shade has really cute scale embossings in the pan, which is just such a really cute touch. I do really like pan embossings. I think they're cute. As you can see, for being such a light shade of blue, this shade packed on really well, but I think you can tell, and I have this issue with light shade mattes in general. This is hardly a problem unique to Oden's Eye, but I feel like, especially with light eyeshadows, it's just so difficult to hide it that if you have dry eyelids, these light colored powders can really kind of show the little dry spots on your eyelids. I think you can tell how it kind of emphasizes my texture just a little bit. I feel like it's just kind of an inevitable part of using powder eyeshadow. It's just that when the shadow is dark, the darkness of the shadow hides it, but just something I wanted to notice. Otherwise though, this shade packed on really, really well and blended out really, really well. I think you can see that for yourself here. I really wanted to do a look mixing the blue and red tones in this eyeshadow palette together. This is definitely not something I've never done before. I actually, in my Glamlight Margarita eyeshadow palette thing, I did a look using the blue and the pink, so I mix these 2 colors together pretty often actually, but I really, really wanted to try using Ragnarok ASAP. I was a little bit disappointed with the red in Resurgence because I felt like it pulled really pink, so I was eager to see how Annette would be able to pull off a deeper shade of red without it pulling pink or orange. And as I mentioned in the review portion, it pulls a little bit pink. It's still not perfectly red, but I think it came a lot closer to what I would have wanted, so I do really like this shade. And as you can see, it is applying pretty well. I'm not really having any working issues with it. I'm using these shades to make a softer cut crease kind of look. Just getting the shape, establishing it, and then taking my time packing on Ragnarok, and I am very happy to say that Ragnarok did not stain my eyelid, which is a very common problem with reds and pinks. These didn't stain me at all, which is great. So you can see here I'm just really creating and sculpting the shape I want my eyeshadow to be for this look, especially when it comes to me trying to do cut creases. I don't like using concealer to cut the crease because I really try to minimize the layers of product I have on my dry, wrinkly ass eyelids. So I generally prefer to just cut the crease the hard way by just trying to place my eyeshadow in as precise a position as possible and just kind of brute force it that way. So that's what you can see. I'm just really taking my time doing that. I think I did a pretty good job with this. I don't know what, I wonder if just filming this not in my usual space and then also not having to focus on talking at the same time, I feel like my looks using this palette were a little bit more kind of thought out and creative than I usually go for. I wonder if just like the change in environment and being able to really hyper focus on my eyeshadow just kind of did that for me. I don't know, but I definitely felt like I was feeling some kind of way when I was filming with this palette, because my looks turned out a little bit better than they usually do, I think. You can see I'm applying it on my lower lash line as well. I know some people are really not really big fans of putting pinks and reds on the lower lash line because it can kind of make your eyes look a little bit swollen. It can make you look a little bit sick. I don't ever feel like I've had that problem with myself. I've even put red and pink in my lower waterline and I just don't care. So you can see I'm very happily doing that. And then I'm putting a little bit of blue in the gap left behind. Now I am taking Glow Vortex. This is the kind of multi-chrome in the palette, and my goodness, this shade is beautiful. I do talk about it more in the review portion, so I won't repeat myself too much, but Glow Vortex is an absolutely amazing, beautiful shade, a step above what Oden's Eye has historically done when they put multi-chromes in their palettes, and you can see here on top of the blue, it just almost lights the entire look on fire. I mean, it is just so pretty. Now I'm going to blend together the shade Oceanic and Ragnarok, but I don't actually want the two mattes to meet because I don't really feel like creating a weird shade of purple, so instead I'm going to be using Ouroboros to do that, which I like. I think it worked. And as you can see, I am just dabbing it on carefully and layering it carefully. I'm not really wanting it to be too opaque. I'm really just using it to disguise the fact that I didn't blend the two mattes together. I'm also going to put it on the lower lash line, and where on the lower lash line I put it, it's sitting mostly on top of Ragnarok, and it looks really pretty on top of Ragnarok, I've got to say. I did feel like I wanted this look to have some more depth, but I didn't want to use Abyss. So I am just using a Shiseido Kajal Ink Artist in black to deepen up the look, add a little bit of a hint of eyeliner without having to use a brown. I didn't want to use a brown for the deepening up part. I definitely wanted to use black, so I'm just doing that really quickly. And I figure whenever I do 3 looks 1 palette and I add eyeliner, I do tend to leave the eyeliner footage in because adding eyeliner can really transform a look, and so I want to make it clear that I didn't use only the palette to make this look. I did have to pull in something else, so I'm just leaving that in. And that's what that's looking like. And that's the finished look. I focused my makeup, the rest of my face of makeup is leaning really heavily into the pinks. And yeah, I really like this. I feel like in terms of cut creases, this is probably one of my better ones, especially in terms of the shape of the cut crease. I feel like I'm getting closer and closer to figuring out the shape of cut crease that is most flattering. I used the Persona blush stick, and then I'm just holding up the rest of everything else that I use so you can see it. Skywalker is so pretty. And then lastly, I don't know if this is still available, this is a limited edition Chantecaille lipstick. And then I topped it off, so you can see it's a lot glossier than it usually would be if I only used the Chantecaille. So the extra gloss is coming from that AOU lip mask, which also has a slight cool berry tint to it. Very pretty shade. And that's going to be look number 2. The final look, the only mattes I haven't used yet in this palette are going to be the yellow and the purple, so that's what I'm going to go in with today. So starting off, I'm first starting with the shade Ophidian, and such a cool name. I think the names in this palette are so cool. As you can see, this shade, it's not quite pastel, definitely not. It doesn't have enough white in it to qualify, but it is a lighter purple. I wasn't able to show me applying most of Ophidian because I did that off camera. So now I'm jumping to applying Solar Burst, which again, such a cool name. And again, I had to skip most of that too, to marry the two shades together, at least on top, and to add just a little bit more color interest, and to blend out Ophidian without having to try and blend out purple, which is not my favorite thing to do in the world. I'm using Oceanic, and you can see how Oceanic, it just really fits so well into this color scheme that I was trying to pull off. And it also melts into Solar Burst in a really nice way because the two of those shades mix together to produce just the most subtle hint of green. So I was very happy with my choice to pull in Oceanic for this. Both Ophidian and Solar Burst were such a pleasure to use, such easy shades to lay down and blend. I know yellows can sometimes be a bit tricky for brands to make, so making it more of like an orange yellow like this is kind of one of the best ways to make the yellow much easier to use. And this shade of purple that is Ophidian, I absolutely love it. Since it's a little bit darker and it's not pastel, it just looks really, really nice on me without looking strange and without making me look washed out, but it's not a dark, dark blue purple either. For my lower lash line, I'm using Abyss because I didn't really want to use any of those 3 shades on my lower lash line. I do like it when my lower lash line is a little bit deeper, but to add the purple back in, I'm taking Ophidian to blend out Abyss. And now I'm just going to pack on a little bit more of Ophidian. I do sometimes find that purples you have to kind of pack them on to make them look good. This shade in Solar Burst, I was able to get a really nice opaque laydown with both. I was very pleased with that. And then I'm just kind of using more of Oceanic as I think I need to try and make the blend a little bit better. I was really focusing on my blending for all the looks I was doing with these palettes. Now I'm going to introduce NYX Glitter Glue so that I can get a nice opaque laydown for the shimmer of choice that I will be using. And I'm going to be using Midgard Gleam. It is a really pretty shade, and the glitter glue definitely helps, but I did find personally that these Oden's Eyes shimmers are actually pretty versatile. They don't need a glitter glue. The glitter glue helps, but it's not by any means a necessity, which I really appreciated because, you know, not all of us feel like using it. And then to blend it into Ophidian a little bit better, I'm using just a smattering of Ouroboros. And then I'm also going to be taking Midgard Gleam on the lower lash line. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. It's either that or it was Electrum. I'm sorry, I'm voicing this over probably like a week and like 2 weeks after I actually filmed this, I know. I am taking some Electrum across the top of the look just because I love Electrum so much, and I think I used Electrum on the inner corner as well. Okay, lastly, I couldn't resist taking a little bit of Glow Vortex just along the lower lash line on the inner corner. Like, it's such a cool shade. I mean, like, I couldn't resist. And then lastly, I'm going to be going between Ophidian and Oceanic just a little bit more to really get that blend nice and seamless the way I want it. You can see the blue and the purple, when they mix together, it just creates such a beautiful shade of blue-purple. Like, it's just so pretty. Those two shades mix so well together. I love it. And then lastly, I thought that the lower lash line was feeling a little bit divorced from the upper eyelid, so I'm adding in a little bit of Solar Burst right in the middle just to reintroduce a little bit of that yellow. Now things feel a little bit more unified. And that's going to be look number 3. I actually decided to just use mascara for this look. My eyelashes were looking so good during the week period where I was filming the bulk majority of these looks. I don't know what was happening, but my eyelashes were like looking divine, so I thought for a couple of the looks I'd use only mascara just to, you know, sometimes it's nice to see eyeshadow without false lashes. For blush, I used a lavender blush, and then I put right sandwiched between the blush and the eyeshadow the shade Solar Burst as a blush, which it is such a beautiful shade of blush. For my contour, you can see I'm using that, just holding up everything I used. And then lastly, I used another Chantecaille shade. I believe this one is also limited edition. It was a little bit light though, so I decided to darken it up and also just kind of tone it down just a little bit more by using this 2/4 lip changer, which is what they're marketed as. So this was all 3 looks done. I really appreciated it. I'm going to be moving on to the review portion in a few seconds. Hope you're enjoying this so far. Hi everyone, so I probably mentioned in the voiceover, I don't know because I haven't filmed the voiceover yet, but when I traveled up to Virginia, I brought all of my filming stuff except for my microphone. So I am filming my kind of review on the palettes on a separate filming session. So you guys are going to see this look multiple times at the end of each video. For this makeup look, I used shades from all 3 palettes in the Legendary Diversa Part 2 collection, so I didn't leave any of the palettes out. I just decided to do a 3rd fun look. I didn't film it, I just kind of wanted to chill and relax and experiment with some stuff. So very quickly, I'm going to go over my thoughts on the Mighty Monster palette, which is right here. I am using my Sony instead of my Canon, so I'm trying to get the colors to look similar, but if I wasn't able to get it to look perfect, that's why you see an abrupt change in the color profile. But let me just quickly go over my thoughts on this palette. As expected, I'm not surprised at all by this, but as expected, this is my favorite palette of the three. When I first was using the original Legendary Diversa collection, my favorite palette of the three in that bunch was Giant Wolves. So I really wasn't surprised at all that I ended up liking Mighty Monster the most. It's just, the colors are so much fun, and the shimmer profile in this palette I think is the most diverse among the three palettes, and the shimmers in this palette also suit my personal preferences the most. Electrum is so incredibly foiled and sparkly, and Serpent Scales also similarly. It's the shimmer that's on the middle of my look today. Has a similar kind of finish to Electrum. They both are so foiled, so reflective. And then Ouroboros and Midgard Gleam are a little bit more fine. The particles are a little bit more fine, but they still don't sacrifice any of the reflectivity, and the shifts in them are really pretty. And then my inner corner shade, which is Glow Vortex, is my favorite transforming slash multi-chrome shade across all three of these palettes. I have gone on the record previously stating that Oden's Eyes multi-chromes in their palettes are not bad, especially considering the price you're paying for the whole palette versus the conventional price of multi-chrome singles, which can be anywhere from $15 to $27 and beyond. So for the price, it's not bad, but I've never found them to be great, especially when compared to singles, which I know is an unfair comparison, but I just felt I still wanted to make that note in case there were people out there buying palettes just to have a good deal on the multi-chrome. I thought it was okay. It was definitely a you get what you pay for. Glow Vortex is gonna come in and tell me no. No, we're not doing that anymore. We're only doing top quality multi-chromes in these palettes and still charging the exact same price, okay? Glow Vortex is amazing. I absolutely adore this shade. The highlighter I'm wearing on my cheeks today is Prophecy from Kaleidos, and it's so pretty. It is very similar in shimmer and shift profile to Glow Vortex, and Glow Vortex I think matches up to its quality really well, which is just, you know, considering the price of Prophecy at the time it was released, I think it's just such an achievement for Oden's Eye. The only qualm I had with this and all three palettes, and I'm going to mention this in each video just in case some people don't watch all three of the videos, my only qualm really is that I find the mattes to still not build true to pan on my eyelids. Now, I have dry eyelids. It does take effort for me to prepare. If I over prepare, then the makeup, then just like with oily eyelids, the eyeshadow is going to not build up properly and slide right off. But if I'm not preparing properly and my eyelids are too dry, then the pigment is going to just fall off my face onto my lower lash line. I'm going to get to fall out. The pigment will not want to adhere, and I just will not be able to get buildup, and it also will not blend very well. So if I was not careful about preparing my eyelids, I definitely noticed I had trouble getting these shades to build up true to pan. My biggest criticism of the palette is not the quality, but the color scheme would just be that I don't really have a super deep shade to use to deepen these shades up. Not a problem for me personally, considering that I probably at this point have over 100 eyeshadow palettes, so obviously it's very easy for me to use something else to deepen it up. But if you're using this as a standalone, then this is about the darkest you're going to get. This green here is about the darkest, and for me personally, I didn't really find I was able to get any of the mattes across all three palettes to build true to pan, but again, I have dry eyelids. This is a problem for me for multiple brands. Like, pretty much the only brand that evades this right now in terms of powder mattes is Natasha Denona, but I just wanted to put that out there. Other than that though, the blending was so easy. All of the mattes in all three palettes blended really well. The shimmers worked well with a finger or a brush, and I did looks using both glitter glue and no glitter glue, and I actually got really great performance either way, and the wear time was really good. Now, I have gone on record to say with previous collections, especially when I was doing looks with the Hella palette and the Perfect World collection, where I was very disappointed in Oden's Eyes shimmer formula. I thought it had gone downhill and that they just did not have the shimmers they used to have in the original Legendary Diversa collection. I am very happy that I can say that this Legendary Diversa collection returned back to that status quo that I was expecting. I'm very happy. This collection alone could get me interested in Oden's Eye again. Like, I haven't bought from them in almost a year because I was so disillusioned by their Perfect World collab set. I just didn't think the quality control was there. Mine were so hit or miss, but I think this alone, if this is going to be their new standard of quality, which I very much hope is the case, I could buy from them again. So I'm very happy. So I'm going to end my little review here. I hope that was helpful for you guys. If you have any more questions about Mighty Monster, let me know. Oh, and one more thing. I remember saying how I was really excited for Ragnarok, the red shade, because it's so hard for me to find a red. It still pulls slightly pink. It doesn't pull as pink as the red in Resurgence, but it's not staying deep blood red. It's not as red as the red in Flower Nose Swan Ballet. However, it doesn't pull as pink as other reds do. It pulls very slightly pink, so for me, I still consider it satisfactory, but it's not quite perfectly red. But I'll admit, it's very hard to make a good red. Like, really, really hard to nail it down without it going orange or pink. It goes ever so slightly pink, but other than that, I do quite like the red. And formulation-wise, it's a very good red. None of these shadows stain. So, with that, I'm going to end my review on Mighty Monster. Hope you guys enjoy that. I do not have a code with Oden's Eye. They offered to put me on the PR list, asked for my address, and then ghosted me. This was probably at least 2 years ago, and I have reached out to them since then, and I've literally gotten nothing. If any of you guys are watching this video and you're on Oden's PR list, if you could like bug them for me and remind them. I don't even care if they don't want me on the PR list anymore. I'm completely fine with that. I just never got a reply, and I don't like it when brands ghost people like that. It's so unprofessional. So like, if they reply to me and tell me, oh no, we're not putting you on the PR list after all, that's literally all I need for some closure. Okay, they've left me hanging for 2 years at this point. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you guys have any feedback or anything in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.